This video series looks at how the number 13 is found at the root of many key aspects of our existence, and how the Mayan civilization, which lasted for thousands of years, apparently discovered this intriguing fact. In my previous video, I shared a little background on the three primary calendars of the Maya and how they incorporated the number 13 into their tracking of time. We also began to see a little of how biblical mythology was replicated in Mayan beliefs. We will now continue with our examination. What would possess the Maya to choose 260 days for their ritual day count calendar? Why not 200 or 265? What's so special about 260? Was it simply an arbitrary number, or could it have a special meaning? To answer that question, let's review some of the things for which the calendar was used. For example, it was used for rituals, maize cultivation, divination, and astrology. Basically, the Zolkin was used as a personal calendar because it most directly influenced the day-to-day lives of the people. As such, 260 must somehow relate to man. What number would define a man? Logically, it would be the number that would bring him into existence. With humans, the normal gestation period is 39 weeks, or 3 trimesters of 13 weeks each. Converted to days, that produces 273. Some quick arithmetic is quite revealing. As you can see, 260 is 13 days shy of 273, with the 39 weeks of human gestation itself being 13 weeks short of the full 52-week year. Is this just a crazy coincidence? No, ladies and gentlemen, there's a pattern, and therefore an associated message that we are uncovering. It's a message that a group of people living hundreds of years ago figured out, but which we blindly ignore today. It's a message at the very heart of our enigmatic existence. Interestingly, the Zolkin calendar and its associated cycles leading to the calendar round are also reflected in the dance of the heavens. How so? The 260-day calendar was divided into 4 ritual seasons that were spaced 65 days apart. Each of these seasons corresponded to one of the 4 cardinal points, east, west, north, and south, which defined a complete revolution. In the sky above their heads, the planet Venus was found to have a synodic period of 584 days. This means that every 584 days, Venus reappears in the very same part of the sky in relation to the Sun as viewed from the Earth. 65 of these 584-day cycles, 37,960 days in all, or 104 years, precisely match 2 52-year calendar rounds. I call this a Venusian calendar round. Over the course of these twin calendar rounds, there will be 146 revolutions of the Zolkin calendar. These 146 revolutions will produce 584 ritual 65-day seasons, the same as the original synodic period of Venus. Clearly, each 65-day season of the Zolkin was designed to celebrate the complete and much longer 104-year Venusian calendar round, with each day representing a single 584-day synodic period. Intriguingly, it takes on average 65 days for Venus to rise from the glare in front of the Sun to its highest point above the Sun, but it takes another 182 days to disappear behind the Sun on day 247. Quite appropriately, the number 247 is 13 less than the 260-day Zolkin calendar. From day 247 to the point of superior conjunction, when Venus is directly opposite Earth on the far side of the Sun, takes another 39 days on average. Yet again, 39 is a number defining mankind, since 39 weeks are required for a typical human to gestate. Since another 39 days will pass until Venus reappears, there is a definite symbolic theme of twins being presented that is also found in Mayan mythos, as we will later see. It should be noted that it takes 584-day synodic cycles to almost exactly match 8 Earth years. This is extremely interesting, since the numbers 5 and 8 produce ratios that are very near the golden ratio of 1.618, thus representing perfection. These 584-day synodic periods represent 13 orbits of Venus, and of course, 8 plus 5 is 13. As you can see, the duality of our existence and the relationship of certain sacred numbers associated with man have been reproduced in a fractal manner and written in the heavens. The Mayans uncovered these root elements. Was all of this merely a product of random evolution, or does it betray the actions of an intelligent guiding force? Indeed, is it merely coincidental that the number defining the earthly calendar round, 52, is 13 short of the number at the heart of a Venusian calendar round and the Zolkin season at 65? The culmination of 4 52-year calendar rounds, 208 years, equates to 130 cycles of Venus and another obvious 13. These twin Venusian calendar rounds mysteriously coincided with the recurring 208-year cycle of droughts that plagued the Maya on the Yucatan Peninsula. Research has shown that they might even have led to the collapse of the Mayan civilization. It was believed that these droughts stemmed from a known solar cycle that produces an increase in intensity. However, the solar cycle in question occurs every 206 years and not 208. While they may coincide a few times, eventually they will move farther and farther apart. Logically, the only events that can account for the precision of the 208-year drought cycle are the Venusian calendar rounds. Ergo, Venus and not the Sun must somehow be responsible. The fact that the great civilization of the Maya could have been destroyed in a time period linked to the movements of a planet after which their own sacred calendars were patterned is more than a little coincidental. It is proof positive that they understood the celestial fates that befall man, but which they were powerless to change. It is proof that, just like a year renews every 4 seasons, the culmination of 4 seasons of any length tied to these special numbers leads to destruction and rebirth. In essence, they found a way to foretell their own end. The elusive 13 doesn't just play favorites with Venus. It is also an important part of the cycle of Saturn. As the sixth planet, Saturn shares a certain kinship with 13, the sixth prime. Since its synodic period is 378 days, we find that Earth's year is 13 days short. Not only that, Earth's rotational period is a little over 13 hours slower than Saturn's. Thanks to its overt system of rings, of all the planets, only Saturn can appear as if it is an eye in the sky looking down from heaven. As such, could it be the source of such symbols as the Eye of Providence or the Eye of Horus? Or perhaps, could the references to the winged disk or winged sun in ancient cultures such as Sumer and Egypt actually be a reference to Saturn? Could it reference a time in our past when a rogue Saturn passed through our solar system, causing great destruction? Both Saturn and the asteroid belt carry the signature remnants of a great collision. Could our ancestors have actually witnessed it? And finally, Jupiter, the largest of the planets, is also a party to the elusive 13. You see, it has a synodic period of 398.8 days as viewed from Earth, or roughly every 13 Earth months. As stated earlier, the Hob calendar had 18 named 20-day months, which accounted for 360 days. The missing 5 days that completed the year were part of a short 19th month that remained nameless and were considered extremely unlucky. This dark time was called Wayeb. During that short month, superstition abounded. No activities were planned, and people would not leave their homes or bathe for fear that something evil would befall them. These 5 unnamed days, over the 52 cycles of the calendar round, yields 260 days, the length of a single complete revolution of the Zolkin calendar. Indeed, if you take the complete unused portion of the year, 5.25 days, you reach 273, the number of days in the human gestation period of 39 weeks. Given that these particular days were unnamed and unlucky, does their collective accumulation over the period of a calendar round bespeak the gradual rising of a man of evil? Or perhaps, does it refer to a time of evil over which mankind has no control? Might it refer to the unfortunate fate of a single man, one who must be sacrificed so that the next calendar round and the people themselves may be reborn or resurrected? This latter aspect would tend to support legends like Christ, who gave his life for all. It would even tend to corroborate certain Mayan legends, such as that of Hun Hunakpu, who was beheaded by the lords of the underworld. In that latter case, the lords placed Hun Hunakpu's severed skull in the dead tree of life, which immediately sprang to life. Eventually, the head would spit into the hand of one of the daughters of the evil lords and impregnate her, from which twins would be born to restart life on the surface. This recalls the twins element of Venus disappearing and descending behind the sun with, on average, two 39-day periods of time before being reborn. Again, the number 39 references the 39 weeks of man's typical gestation period. In any event, the common recurring element seems to be that one man holds the key to the rebirth of the world. Those 360 named days of the Hob calendar are extremely important. Why? Because many ancient societies originally used a 360-day calendar. The Egyptians, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Chinese, and the Persians, just to name a few. Even the Bible specifically mentions a 360-day calendar. For example, in Genesis 7, verse 11, it states that the great flood began on the 17th day of the second month, and that the waters prevailed for 150 days before the ark came to rest on the 17th day of the seventh month. Logically, therefore, each of these 5 months had precisely 30 days. Likewise, in Revelation 11, verses 2 and 3, it states that the Gentiles shall tread over the holy city for 42 months, and that 2 witnesses shall prophesy for 1260 days. Since 1260 divided by 42 is 30, then the months of the entire year were obviously 30 days each, and the entire year was 360 days. The Bible is quite specific about this 360-day calendar, as it should be. Since a complete circle consists of 360 degrees, it is only logical to apply that number to the complete circuit of the Earth around the Sun. But why would it now be 5.25 days off? Are we to conclude that it has always been this way, and that the people, thousands of years ago, were simply off on their calculations? That is extremely doubtful. Something is definitely amiss here, and those final 5 days are the key. Since those days over the span of a 52-year calendar round cycle equal the gestation period of man, it is logical to conclude that the increase was specifically needed because of man. It is now time to re-examine the long count calendar, because that which we've been told regarding its operation is an obvious and blatant falsehood. How such obfuscation could remain intact so many years is a testament to the power of brainwashing and the ability of the human mind to blindly accept as truth what it is told by academia. To what do I refer? It is completely illogical that the Mayans would go to the trouble of developing a sophisticated vigesimal or base 20 calendar only to bastardize it by including a base 18 360-day Tung time period. Quite simply, this should be 400 days, not 360, to be a true base 20 calendar. The usage of 360 days in lieu of 400 days for a Tung time period throws off the later Ka'atung and Ba'aktung lengths of 7,200 and 144,000 days respectively. These should now be 8,000 and 160,000 days. Which is more logical? Let's not forget, this calendar was designed to tally days, not years. The usage of 360 in a base 20 calendar was obviously inserted as an attempt by a Westerner to bring his or her own brand of reason to something he or she could not hope to fathom. Unfortunately, the scholars likely misunderstood how 360 days applied to the long count calendar. They mistakenly believed it needed to be found overtly in use, but duality demands that it may have been employed covertly instead. For example, if we utilize base 10 arithmetic and divide any of my altered larger numbers by 360, we get a single repeating decimal. While this might seem to be an equally irrelevant mixing of base 20 and base 10 that is only used to cherry-pick facts to bolster my argument, it must be remembered that I have been endeavoring to teach you about the importance of the laws of birthright throughout my other books and videos. In them, we also found repeating decimals as well, with 1/3 being 0.333, while 2/3 is 0.666. As a result, we cannot simply dismiss these repeating decimals as nothing more than a mathematical curiosity. They may mean something, or they may mean nothing. Nevertheless, we must add it to our list of possible evidence for later analysis. At the very least, the fact remains that there appears to have been a definite obfuscation taking place with regards to the long count calendar. Could the base 18 Tun time period have been deliberately promoted to hide an inconvenient truth? On 12 July 1562, a Franciscan friar by the name of Diego de Landa Calderon, who at the time had been engaged in a brutal inquisition of the indigenous peoples of the Yucatan, decided to hold an auto de fe, literally an act of faith, in the village of Mani. In it, he burned thousands of idols and a great many Mayan codices, perhaps over 40. Irreplaceable elements documenting the once great Mayan society were needlessly destroyed simply because they were believed to be pagan or the lies of the devil. Landa's book burning was so thorough that only 4 of those codices survive today. But why was this done? The easy answer is that he was trying to force his brand of Christianity down the throats of the locals. He needed to destroy their old beliefs and erase them, as one formats a computer hard drive, thus making them more receptive to the new religious operating system. To Landa, their old system was flawed, superstitious, and of the devil. Unfortunately, there's one thing wrong with this simple conclusion. You see, if Diego de Landa truly believed that the information stored in the Mayan codices were pagan and evil, why would he later devote considerable time and effort into creating an exhaustive written study of the Mayan culture, religion, language, and writing system? Why wouldn't he simply ignore it and concentrate on his benevolent Christian faith? If, after all, it truly was evil, why wouldn't he fear it, as Christians everywhere are conned into fearing everything except what they are told to believe? Instead, Landa willingly chose to embrace it. Was this his penance for his crimes against humanity, or was it something darker? As it turned out, Landa's literary work, entitled Relación de las Cosas de Yucatán, was instrumental in the later decipherment of Mayan hieroglyphics, and it proved to be the main contemporary source of Mayan history. By burning the codices, he effectively appointed himself chief arbiter of what future generations would eventually come to know about the Mayan culture. In effect, a representative of the church went to a lot of trouble to rewrite the history of an entire culture to ensure that it was viewed in a certain way. This is similar to the manner in which Paul rewrote and remolded the teachings of Christ. The words of truth were silenced and supplanted by an evil force. But why? Is it possible that Diego de Landa discovered an inconvenient truth that the Church wanted to remain hidden? I'm sure that both budding and experienced Mayan scholars will be loudly disagreeing with my hypothesis and marveling at my apparent ignorance. However, what if I could prove my assertion? What if I could sync the creation dates of both the Mayan long count calendar and the Hebrew calendar? Would that convince you?